Is Mick the only wrestler that you feel like could have had those types of matches with the Undertaker? Do you feel like he's the only one that could have pulled Undertaker into a match that had that type of violence, like him, Kane? Yeah.
Yeah, I don't. I mean, let me think. I mean, I'd have to go back through the Rolodex of everybody that I worked with, but I mean, those two stand out.
Where it makes sense.
It makes sense that you would have an Inferno match because
Yeah.
he was burned up as a child, and so that all those crazy matches all had a
Like you and Kane were like two people that you can't be killed. You know what I'm
Right,
saying?
yeah.
So like you have to go to the extremes against each other for one person to come out victor, right?
right.
With Mick, it's Mick's got to for Mick to beat an Undertaker, it's got to be extreme.
It's got to go to the next level.
Yeah. And that's what makes it believable.
Yeah.
Right.
He's with Mick and Mankind. I always my image and my understanding of it is like, I will do this to myself just so that I can do this to you.
Yeah.
Right. That was Mick's mentality. Right. That was the story that he was telling. I'm going to endure this much pain, which is going to be, it's going to be monumental pain just to inflict a little bit of pain on you.
I'm willing to go through hell just to get you to have a little bit of a sunburn.
Exactly. And so when you start thinking about that kind of mindset, like how deranged the individual does he have to be to do those kind of things? You'd said I would wear him out, and then he would get on the apron and take a stick or a pencil and jab it into his leg, and he'd pull his hair out. I mean, that's just next level commitment, but it all made sense into his tormented mindset that he had, and that's why it made it so believable. And then you have this indestructible force called the Undertaker. Like this guy will kill himself. This guy will torture himself to torture this person.
And I think that's what makes Mick so interesting is the fact of, we've talked about, thinking outside the box and, just stretching those boundaries and doing different things. And you've mentioned Bray Wyatt before. And I just look at like Mick, and Mick was that guy. I think a lot of people look at Mick and think of the extreme stuff of the, thumbtacks and just staples and crazy crap like that. But I think what he was able to do in the ring of storytelling, and it maybe physically and athletically he wasn't on the same level as a lot of folks,
right?
But what he made up for through storytelling, I think, is what makes him so special.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Yeah. It just, his commitment to taking the tools that he had, and he didn't just take thumbtacks just to take thumbtacks.
No.
It's just, that's the difference between what you see a lot of now is people do things just for the shock of doing it.
He lands on the thumbtacks and then rolls at them.
Man.
But those are the things about him that, once again, if you're a young wrestler, man, you want to attach yourself to a guy like a Jake the Snake or a Mick Foley. Like,
you don't necessarily want to do those things, but you want to understand why he did those things.
Yeah.
Right. That's the element. It's like, why would you do that? Why did you do that when you did that there? And it all revolved around storytelling.
Was there people in the locker room that didn't want to maybe work with Mick because of some of the extreme stuff he would do in the ring? Were they a little nervous to potentially work with him?
I don't remember anybody, because Mick most of the time hurt himself.
It wasn't necessarily. You weren't going to necessarily get thumbtacks.
No. I mean, I got thumbtacks. After our initial, let me think here. Like one of the roughest things that I remember taking from Mick was the night that Mick debuted. It was right after what was it, WrestleMania? It was WrestleMania in LA. I don't actually remember what number. I had worked with Diesel.
Okay.
Diesel was about to go on to WCW. I'm worked the next night on Raw. I worked with. I believe I worked with. I think I did a TV match with JBL. I worked with Vader, and then I think Mick debuted. And I remember the biggest thing that he did that probably hurt more than anything else that Mick ever did to me is he ended up, slamming me or running me into the steps and dropping the elbow off of the apron onto the concrete.
Yeah.
And I mean, that was pretty snug, but when you look back to this whole thing of this of the angle, he took a lot more. He took a lot more than he dished out, and yeah, man, he's special, man. He
really is.
Yeah.
And there's this weird Mount Rushmore over here that he lives on of
what you're willing to do to yourself for the sake of your fans, and it's so like, I think people are nowadays. I think they're used to it now. But when I finally started talking, like, oh well, he doesn't, he doesn't,
yeah.
he actually is a human being. To know the human being that Mick is. Like the kind-hearted soul, like it's hard to look back into mankind and see, okay, this guy is actually this guy who is Santa Claus every year.
Could you imagine being like his grandkids or something, and you look back and you watch these old matches and
Like,
stuff?
okay, honey, you're gonna stay with Grandpa. Grandpa, wasn't Grandpa a wrestler? Oh yeah, well let's watch this. I don't want to stay with Grandpa.
I could see him babysitting the kids, and all of a sudden, parents come to pick up the kids, and the kids can't sleep at night.
Kids can't sleep at night. They got big patches cut out of their hair where they wanted to be like that.
They're in their room wrestling. They've got tacks on the ground.
Yeah.
It's like, that's what Granddaddy did. Yeah.
That's good. We watched all of his stuff.